one thing to keep in mind is if you need to get somewhere, you need to leave certain things behind. If you want to get somewhere in your life, if you want to get somewhere in 2020, you got to leave certain things behind. You got to leave certain things from 2019 behind for you to get to 2020. Someone said, for God, He took Israel out of Egypt overnight. It was just miracles that were needed just to move Israel out of Egypt. But it took 40 years for God to remove Egypt out of Israel. It's not easy to let go of our old patterns, of our things and nature that we are so accustomed to. But if you need to get somewhere, friends, you got to leave certain things behind. You can't drag 2019 into your 2020 self. You got to leave it behind. Let me illustrate it with another example. One of my favorite companies is SpaceX. SpaceX is a company that's world leader in space exploration. This company makes rockets. And one of the claim to fame for SpaceX is that they have Falcon Heavy, their flagship product, which is popular for being the vehicle that can launch the highest payload into space. The highest payload. It can launch 140,000 pounds into outer space. 140,000 pounds. That's a lot of weight that it can put into outer space. Now, it's called the payload fraction, which is the amount of weight it can put in this space compared to its own weight. Right? You put something in, what's the total weight? It turns out Falcon Heavy weighs 2.8 million pounds. But it can only put 140,000 pounds into space, which is 5%. 5% of the total weight of Falcon Heavy is the payload it's going to put in the orbit. What about the remaining 95%? The remaining 95% of the weight of Falcon Heavy is fuel. Most of it is fuel except for body mass, about 85% or so. It's just fuel that burns, helps launch the payload into the orbit. So what's happening here? As Falcon Heavy pushes the fuel behind, it propels itself forward. As Falcon Heavy pushes things behind, the force that is generated propels it forward in space. Just as you and I, we push things behind in 2019, just as how we can propel forward, Falcon Heavy does the same thing. As it propels and pushes things behind, it is able to move forward. This is the third law of motion. Every force has equal and opposite reaction. Friends, you and I got to leave certain things behind. What's God's calling you to leave away in 2019? Don't bring them into 2020.